The opening scene features 5 friends who are getting ready for their trip to Croatia. They are planning to hike and climb high mountains to make it a memorable adventure. The group members consist of a trained hiker couple, Fred and Corinne, a nurse, Chloe, her boyfriend Loic, and Gom. Before they start their trip, Fred asks Loic if he is comfortable with Gom joining them. It turns out that Gom is Chloe's ex-boyfriend who still harbors feelings for her. Loic says it's fine, even though Gom is liable to try to push him off the cliff at some point, and the group sets off for the trip. After enjoying a few hours of driving, they arrive at the starting point of their hike, only to discover that it is closed off with steep mountain rocks. Moreover, there's a warning board that deems the place unsafe for hiking. Despite this, the experienced climber Fred climbs up the steep rock and convinces the others to cross the track. He also sets up a rope harness and hooks for the rest of them to follow suit. The inexperienced Loic is clearly scared, but he is encouraged by Chloe to proceed. While waiting for him to arrive, Gom strikes up a conversation with Chloe. He expresses his happiness to see her after a long time and also asks her about her well-being. Here we learn that Chloe has been grappling with guilt and trauma as she had accidentally killed a young patient during treatment. She responds that she's recovering well and is optimistic that this hike will further refresh her. As their journey progresses, they realize that the trail is not as easy as they had anticipated. After a while of climbing, the group comes across an old and unstable suspension bridge, which they will have to cross in order to reach the other side. Fred leads the way, followed by Gom and then Chloe. But when it comes to Loic, he gets paralyzed by fear, causing him to stop in the middle. Seeing this, Corinne tries to help him, but her boyfriend stops her as the bridge is not strong enough to hold 2 people at a time. Chloe then encourages Loic to come to her, and he somehow manages to get to the other end. But unbeknownst to them, the bridge is already on the verge of breaking down. At last, Corinne makes her way through the bridge. As she gets to the midway, the old bridge gets twisted and suddenly collapses, leaving her hanging by the harness. In the urgency of the situation, Fred hastily throws another rope towards her and begins pulling her to safety. She is rescued just moments before the ropes snap. With the bridge gone, the group realizes that they can't turn back. Although it's the only way they know, Loic freaks out and directs his frustration towards Fred, blaming him for leading them onto such a closed-off trail. However, Fred asserts that they have no time to argue and that they must make it to the other end of the mountain before nightfall. Following this, the group continues on their journey, climbing through another steep cliff. Left at one point, they notice that the rope meant to hold their harness has been detached. In a quick action, Fred and Corinne climb ahead without harnesses, promising to pull the rest of the group once they reach the upper surface. In the meantime, Loic, Gom, and Chloe try their best to hang on. Gom advises the heavily breathing Loic to calm down, but the latter tells him to shut up. He is clearly jealous and hostile because of Gom's obvious feelings for Chloe. Soon after, a vertigo-stricken Loic fails to belay the rope, causing him to fall. He also brings the attached Gom down with him. Despite the terrifying situation, Chloe doesn't act as she remains paralyzed by the haunting memories of her past. Meanwhile, Fred and Corinne are wandering through the jungle looking for a strong tree to tie the rope and help their friends. During this, Fred accidentally steps in a bear trap, severely wounding his leg. Corinne frantically tries to free his leg, but it only causes him excruciating pain. Fred then tells her to get the others first so that they can help remove the trap. Following this, she runs back to the cliff and drops the rope, enabling the 3 of them to climb up one after another. While she is gone, Fred hears movement in the trees around him as the chain to the trap tightens. Seconds later, he is suddenly dragged away from the scene. Hence, when the group returns, they are unable to find Fred. They only find blood on the surrounding foliage and the empty, blood-stained bear trap. Corinne is initially confused as to how Fred managed to get out of the trap when they couldn't open it before. However, she soon panics, thinking that he must have wandered off and gotten lost. The group, now faced with the grim reality of Fred's absence, debates their next course of action. The cowardly Loic suggests that they prioritize finding an exit. This enrages Corinne, who then gets into an argument with him. However, Chloe steps in and ends the argument, saying that they will be finding Fred first. She also points out that the sun is about to set, and all the flare lights are with Fred, so they can't abandon him. As they search the area, the 2 men continue bickering over Chloe. Loic forbids Gom from talking to Chloe after this trip, to which the latter smugly responds that she isn't over him yet. Loic loses his cool after hearing this and gets into a brawl with them. Upon witnessing the scuffle, Chloe runs over to break them up but falls into a pit trap on the way. The others ask if she is okay, but they don't receive any response since the pit is deep and dark, and they are unable to see her. Corinne then ties a rope to a stone and uses it to rappel down. Once inside, she discovers that it's actually a poacher's trap full of spikes, one of which has pierced through Chloe's arm. Meanwhile, Dom feels they're being watched by someone. He tells Loic about it, but the latter dismisses him. Sometime later, they manage to pull Chloe out of the pit and dress her wound. Now the group realizes that someone has deliberately set up the traps, so they opt to be extra careful as they continue on their quest. It eventually gets dark and starts raining heavily. Corinne is exhausted and feels hopeless. But Chloe motivates her to keep going. They believe that spreading out will make it easier for them to find Fred quickly, but at the same time, they're too scared to be alone. As a result, they tie each other with the same rope so that they can pull it in case they need help. Following this, they spread out and go deeper into the woods. A short while later, Corinne, who is at the end of the rope, is hit by an arrow through the chest, gravely injuring her. Despite being in pain, she tries pulling the rope but finds that it's been cut. Fortunately, Chloe happens to turn around and is horrified to see her injured. She frantically rushes to help, but before she can get to her, Corinne is suddenly pulled and dragged away by an unseen entity. Distraught,